his father held for 30 years before that. The Russians are confirming that Assad has left Syria. They are not saying where, and that will be one of the big questions. Where has Assad gone? Is there any possibility that he will face accountability for the mass war crimes committed by his forces over the course of the last 13 years? Including the use of chemical weapons against civilian areas. Those are among the many, many questions this morning, including how will this new rebel government convert their victory on the battlefield into actual governance of one of the key countries in the Middle East. Guys.
Raf, you have President-elect Trump saying that the U.S. should not get involved, should, quote, let it all play out. Has there been any response from the international community to that assertion?
What's interesting, Alicia, is the United States is involved in the sense that there are 1,000 U.S. military personnel who are up in the northeast of Syria and down in the south near the border with Jordan. So whether we like it or not, there are American boots on the ground. At this point, there is no indication that they are in harm's way. They are geographically far away from where the main fighting had been, which was kind of along the western spine of Syria. HTS has given no indication that it is looking for a fight with the United States. Instead, it is saying that it wants to have good relations with the countries of the world. But when President Trump is saying that the United States should not get bogged down inside of Syria, he is sort of washing his hands of the outcome here. And it was notable that he is saying he is looking to both Russia and to China to shape the next stage of both the political and the military situation inside of Syria. You'll remember that President Trump did actually order strikes against Bashar al-Assad in response for the use of chemical weapons. That is something that President Obama threatened to do, but then did not do. That is something that a lot of people here in the region interpreted as a sign that the United States was not prepared to really step up inside of Syria. But you are getting an indication from that early statement from President-elect Trump that he does not want to get bogged down in Syria and that he is prepared to let this messy situation play out. And to some extent, it sounds like let it be shaped by the Russians and by the Chinese. Guys.
All right, NBC's Raf Sanchez. Thank you so much, man. Take care of yourself. Joining us now, Senior Fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, Aaron David Miller. He's also former Arab-Israeli negotiator. Welcome. Good to see you. What's your assessment of the swift-moving pieces in Syria right now, Aaron, in terms of not just what we just heard from Raf, about the Syrians sort of now having to grapple with this new reality on the ground, but the fact that you potentially have the Russians and the Chinese playing a role in what comes next, according to how incoming President Trump sees it.
Yeah, it's fascinating, Alicia and Michael. Thanks for having me. You know, this is the second time in barely a year, a little over a year, where powers large and small and most intelligence organizations missed this rapid evolution of HTS, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. October 7th was the first sort of intelligence failure. This, I think, was the second, and it's rather extraordinary. Beginning November 27th, this group, which is a coalition of Sunni Islamists, formerly tied, at least HTS and its leader, Abu Muhammad Jalani, to al-Qaeda and to ISIS. Those ties have now been broken. Managed to basically demonstrate that the Assad regime had been fundamentally hollowed out, and within a matter of a week ended up taking not only Aleppo, Hama, Homs, but entering Damascus as well today. Look, I think the situation, we have to be very sober and realistic, and I think we can have a lot of hope, but I think that hope has to be tethered to reality. The excitement, understandable, the joy of the end of a brutal, autocratic, drug exporting mafia-like regime, the Assad family. They're gone now. But we've also seen in cases where there was tremendous elation in Yemen, in Libya, in Iraq, in Tunisia, in the wake of the Arab Spring, where that elation was turned to dysfunction and where autocrats and authoritarians or no governance at all managed to rule the day. So we'll see, frankly, if HTS can manage a country of 23 million people. It's going to take an extraordinary amount of international support. And you have a situation where Giuliani has been designated by the Treasury Department and by the Department of State, HTS as a foreign terrorist organization. It's complicated. Great powers, large and small, are going to continue to play a role. The Israelis are worried at one hand, but also see an opportunity with a rollback of Iranian influence. I think we just have to wait and watch and frankly hope. Now, I suspect with the Trump administrations, we'll be doing a lot of hoping from the sidelines, not involved, that in fact this transition can be worked out in a way that benefits the Syrian people.
Let's talk about that. I mean, some early indicators. You have Giuliani reassuring minorities will not interfere with them. He is telling the international community he opposes Islamist attacks abroad. We're also learning, as we're on air, Aaron, the military operations department setting up a curfew in Damascus, 4 p.m. to 5 a.m. What are the early indicators that you look for as you seek to understand whether this moderation, supposed moderation from Giuliani, is in word only or also in deed?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, Giuliani was quoted in a New York Times article. His real name is Ahmed Shara. He put on a suit for one of the interviews. Clearly is sending all the right signals, expanding space for minority groups, the transition with the Sunni Syrian prime minister. You saw that on video, being escorted to a hotel, both agreeing somehow that it will be a political transition. Look, this is an Islamist conservative group which managed to rule in Idlib actually quite functionally. The question is, Syria is also very secular, and Damascus is not terribly traditional. So the real question is, how much Islamic stricture and Islamic rule is HTS going to demand? Are they going to step back and watch a political transition sponsored by the UN and the international community take root? It's hard to say. What we haven't seen is the looting and the retribution that occurred in Iraq and in other places, particularly in Libya, against Gaddafi and those supporting him. Whether or not, as the prisons empty out and as the true face of the Assad regime is revealed again and again and again in brutality and torture and forced disappearances, whether or not these Sunni elements can maintain a sense of discipline and not seek retribution against the minority Alawis remains to be seen. I think we'll know better in the weeks to come what Giuliani's real objectives are here. He was quoted in the New York Times, I think, as saying, yes, he's interested in a political transition, but that's going to have to come later. So I imagine they're going to want to consolidate their power in Damascus. No small task, 2.5 million people. It's going to be quite a heavy lift.
So, David, real quick on this one. Admittedly, we're in the middle of a presidential transition, and President-elect Trump has already indicated that, as you noted, a little bit more hands-off, let the Russians and the Chinese play in the region. I'm sure that there are people in Washington and elsewhere, our allies abroad, who would like to see the U.S. Not just sit on the sidelines here and allow China and Russia to determine ultimately the outcome on the ground there. What do you think the Biden administration, in its 8 weeks or 6 to 8 weeks that are left, can or should do in this situation? Because as I noted coming in, this is fast moving. Things are going to happen over the next days and weeks before the end of December that may require a little bit more hands-on. We don't know. But how does the Biden administration sort of stand in that transition, deal with the issue on the ground real time, but also know that another administration is coming in?
Yeah, it's a terrific question. I think two or three things. Number one, we have 900 to 1,000 Americans deployed in the eastern part of this country, far away now from the center of potential conflict. We have to attend to their well-being and welfare. That's number one. Number two, tracking chemical weapons. The Organization for the Prevention of the Use of Chemical Weapons is not satisfied with Syria's declaration that they've given up most of their chemical assets. They haven't. So tracking that's going to be important. Reassuring our allies. The Israelis are nervous. For the first time since 1974, the Israelis actually deployed forces into the buffer zone, which is now manned by the UN Disengagement Force, an agreement that existed in 1974. So we have to reassure the Jordanians, our Iraqi friends, the Israelis. And then I think we're going to have to wrestle with the issue of what to do about Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. It's a foreign terrorist organization. No material support can be given. That means, what do we do about humanitarian assistance? There may be waivers, but if the U.S. is going to play a role, and again, we have to at least, I think, allow for the reality that in an ungovernable Syria, the ISIS, can make a recovery. So there's going to be a debate in Washington. May not be much of a debate. President Trump wanted those 900 Americans out, seems to me, and putting the responsibility on the Russians and the Chinese for the responsibility in Syria. He's saying anybody but the U.S. And I doubt, frankly, whether Donald Trump, who has very little conception of the national interest, is going to want to spend any American resources, financial, economic, and additional deployment of American forces in Syria.
All right. Aaron David Miller, thank you for being with us this morning. Next, Congressman Eric Swalwell on the congressional response. You're watching The Weekend on MSNBC.
Mr. Grump hated the holidays. They were stressful, not jolly, not happy, no holly. To him, they were full of pure chaos and folly. With a frown, he thought, no way there's room in this my dear fridge, but saw everything organized, not off by a smidge. These kids are so picky, they'll make a big stink, yet the air fryer cooked their whole dinner in sync. So no matter the stress or intense preparations, a My Dear Kitchen ensures great celebrations.
What drives your business? Numbers, data, sales? Sure, but it's your people who define your business. That's why Paychex just reinvented the way to find and keep the best people. Smart, streamlined HR technology assisted by AI and our team of HR experts. Everything you need to recruit, motivate, and support your employees. Because your people are your business. Get 6 free months of payroll at paychex.com/free.
For the first time, you can save up to 25% at loveevery.com site-wide. That's savings at every stage, from newborn through age 7+. The Play Gym to help your baby discover the world around them. The stage-based play kits to give your child's brain what it craves the most. And the reading skill set to motivate your child to read through play. Shop our biggest savings ever. Visit loveevery.com.